Dear participants, kindly mute your video and audio so that we can save the bandwidth and we can listen the seminar without any hassle. So kindly cooperate with us for the smooth functioning of the seminar. Singh sir, shall we start?
Okay. You can start, Ramakrishna. Sorry for the
Okay,
delay. Okay.
it's
Sorry
not
for
too late.
it.
Okay. Miss Jayashree, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Please start the program.
Yes, sir. Very good morning to all. I am M. Jayashree, doing my third BSc Botany. I hereby request all participants to mute your video and audio. Thanks for your cooperation. Today we have wonderful talks on national level one-day seminar on botany. Online series 1. Let us formally begin the seminar with welcome speech by Dr. S. Ramakrishnan sir, who is the convener and head of the Department of Botany, Tagu Government Arts and Science College, Puducherry. I invite Dr. Ramakrishnan sir to address his welcome speech.
Good morning to all. I take this great opportunity to welcome student participants, research scholars, faculty participants, and friends all over India for this national level one-day seminar on botany online series 1. I extend warm welcome to my colleagues who are working in various colleges of Puducherry territory. This seminar would not be possible without the help of our college principal, Dr. Shashikanta Das, who is also attending this seminar now. So please welcome sir, and Directorate of Higher and Technical Education, Government of Puducherry, for the opportunity given to host this national level seminar in a befitting manner. So our college has started in 1961 and our department in 1962. We offer UG botany course now. I'm happy to announce that we have received over 200 registrations for this seminar from all over India, from Gujarat, Delhi, Jharkhand, Karnataka, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Odisha, Puducherry, Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Rajasthan, and the list goes like that. Most of the participants are from Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Puducherry, Odisha. In the month of August 2020, we conducted national level online botany quiz and we received huge support from the students, scholars, and faculties. There were about 800 registrations and over 400 participants submitted the quiz form online. That was a great experience to us. This is the first ever national seminar on botany which we are hosting. The theme for this seminar has come to our mind since the humans all over the world are suffering and lost many lives due to COVID-19. Not less than COVID-19, plants are also suffering from many viral pathogens. This prompted us to go for this seminar since tobacco mosaic virus, which is popularly called as a TMV, a plant virus, and coronavirus, an animal virus, share their homology. This type of seminar would help us to understand on the mechanism by which they affect their respective hosts and combat against their harmful effects. I am very much delighted to say that the two resource persons we have today would present the biology of these two viruses in a befitting manner. They are my close friends indeed. Both the resource persons did their doctoral program in the laboratory of Dr. Usha, who was a virologist in the Department of Plant Biotechnology in the School of Biotechnology in Madurai Kamaraj University. Their labs were equipped with modern molecular biology instruments, equipments, and costly chemicals. I used to wonder whenever I visit their lab. Even I got their help for some of the experiments pertaining to my PhD work. Both the resource persons are UGC CSR net qualified candidates. As far as Dr. T. Jeba Singh is concerned, he did his PhD work on the topic of genetic transformation of cardamom to raise it against the virus. He published many book chapters and in the publications like Springer publication. He also contributed 2 chapters in my edited book entitled Natural Products Drug Development in 2014. That was a gift to me. Regarding Dr. P. Gopal, he did his PhD work on benthic yellow mosaic virus in Madurai Kamaraj University and microRNA abroad. At present, Dr. Gopal is carrying out research with a total fund of nearly 3.5 crores. So with this small introduction to the resource persons, I express my sincere warm welcome to all of you, and also I have an announcement. Dear participants, kindly mute your video and audio throughout the seminar. So the feedback link would be posted in the chat box at the end of the second session. You will get your email with the e-certificates after submitting it. So once again, I welcome all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramakrishnan sir, for your welcome speech. Now I call upon Mr. Hariharan, who is pursuing second BSc Botany, to introduce the resource person for first session. Hariharan.
Good morning to all. I am pleased to introduce Dr. Good morning to all. I am pleased to introduce Dr. T. Jabbar Singh, who is an assistant professor in the Department of Plant and Science, School of Biological Science at Madurai Kamraj University, Madurai, Tamil Nadu. Dr. T. Jabbar Singh's academic and research details ran into many pages which could not be told in this short duration. However, I will try to give my glimpse on it. He has completed his BSc in 1996 from the American College, MSc in 1998, School of Biological Science, Madurai Kamraj University. He completed his PhD during 2007 from School of Biotechnology, Madurai Kamraj University. He was visiting a doctoral fellow at Department of Plant Genetics and Breeding Institute Field and Garden, KRO, Volcanic Center, Israel during 2006 and 2007. After his PhD, he moved to Weizmann Institute of Science, Israel for his postdoctoral fellowship and completed it in 2011. Dr. Jabbar Singh has published a total 29 research articles in reputed national and international journals with high impact factor. He also contributed 7 chapters in various books. He has 15 presentations in his credit in national and international conference took place in various parts of the world. He has participated in 25 national conference and got Self-Aimed Scientist Award 2012-2015. Sir has got research grants, fund from DFT, OIS, CSIR, UGC, Sir, DBT, DBT, RBTI, and started project from 2012. Completed 7 projects so far. At present, Dr. Jabbar Singh is carrying out the research project entitled as Identifying the Role of Histone Acetylene Transferase Motif in Cardamom Mosaic Virus, nil protease in chromatin remodeling and DNA degradation. Fund for this project is about 37.12 lakhs, fund by Sir. Under his guidance, research scholars and pursuing the research PhD programs and completed in 3 PhDs. Last but not least, he has put up his wonderful service in teaching for the past 10 years. As I mentioned earlier, Sir's contribution and achievement cannot be pronounced within this short time duration, and thank you all.
Thank you, Hariharan. Thank you, Mr. Hariharan, for your introduction about resource person. Now, I invite Dr. T. Jabbar Singh sir to take over this session and deliver his contents.
Okay, thank you, Hariharan and Jaya, for a nice introduction. At the outset, I also thank Dr. Ramakrishnan. He actually done his PhD in the same department where at present I'm working, and also I'm occupying the same lab only. So we know each other when we started doing the PhD in a different school. We are friends, as he told, we are friends only. So I take this opportunity to thank Ramakrishnan for providing this opportunity. With this small thing, I will get into the topic. So today, anyway, morning session will be about the plant viruses. So as the Ramakrishnan request, so I am going to cover general characteristics about the viruses, and then I will move into the introduction about the plant viruses. And the second session, I will end up with the giving overall picture about the tobacco mosaic virus. So, what are the latest things happen in the tobacco mosaic virus? So, this is how my talk will be. So, anyway, most of the people, as from the Ramakrishna, I came to know that most of the people they are from the bachelor degree. So, it is going to be it is going to be like a basic things regarding the viruses, like general characteristics of viruses as well as of the plant viruses. So with this thing, I will get into the topic. So now I will share the slides and then I will start my lecture. If you have any doubt in between, you can stop me and then you can ask me also. You know, to keep your question end of the session. So whenever you feel to ask or if you have any clarification, then and there you can ask me also. So you need to wait till the session gets over also. So this is the title: Understand the Plant Viruses with the Tobacco Mosaic Virus. So this is my mail ID. If you want, if you need any other information further, you can contact me in this mail ID also. Okay, so as I told you, the first session in the first session, I divide my thing into two chapters. One is I will cover about the general characteristics of the virus, and then I will cover about the plant viruses, how the transmission happen, what are the symptoms they produce, how the virus how the plant viruses can be controlled. So now it's in the most of the countries are affected by this COVID-19, but still the many more pathogens, especially the plant viruses, they are severe than the COVID. So they affect the plant and they causes the yield loss. But anyway, people not much care about the plant viruses. So a very small group are working on the plant viruses, on different aspects of the plant viruses. There are many interesting discoveries and many important things have been discovered on the plant viruses. Later, like if I want to specific more things like a silencing and then crystallization of the tobacco mosaic virus, and then even like a chromatographic techniques, and so many things are evolved from the plant side only, more specific on the plant viruses only. Still, it has a lot of applications, but still not much work has been carried out on the plant virus when you compare with the animal viruses. So with this short introduction, I'll get into the thing. As you all know, viruses basically derived from the Latin word virus, which refers to poison or venom. If you see that one, the virus can infect most of the organism from the lowermost archaebacteria to the animals and then plant also. If you see that it occupies almost every ecosystem on the earth, and also most numerous type of biological entity. If you see that one, there are variety of viruses infects a variety of organisms also. And it is the smallest known infective agents, and perhaps it is the simplest form of the life also. It just has a nucleic acid covered by the capsid. And if you see that these viruses are small obligate intercellular parasites, they can replicate only inside the living cell of other organisms. So these are the main thing. So coming into whether some people claim that this cannot be considered as a living one. Few virologists, they consider this as a non-living one. Since it lacks a cellular structure, it cannot respire, it cannot move or grow. Even it can crystallize and you can store it in the bottles for many years, still it is infective. And also it lacks the enzyme which is necessary for the basic metabolic activity also. The only thing is that the virus has a genetic material. It may be a RNA or DNA. That is the only thing by which the virologists claim that they are also living organism as like bacteria and then other organisms also. So some scientists they describe the viruses as an organism at the edge of the life also. That it means it is going to so the virus is going to disappear from the earth. But as you can see now, every day or every year, new viruses are evolving. So that also, so that clearly tells that it is not at the edge of the life. Still, it has some life also in the earth. So coming to the history, so the first thing, the Louis Pasteur, he was a famous scientist. So what happened? He wanted to try what is the agents, or what is the organism which causes the rabies on the dog and then sometimes human also. So what happened? He ultimately after the long study, he speculated that the organism should be the microscopic one, so that we cannot see it through the eye. So on 1884, the Charles Chamberlain, another scientist, he discovered one filter which can filter the bacteria. So what happened by using that the Pasteur Chamberlain filter, this Dmitry Ivanovsky on 1892. What happened? He wants to filter the extract from the tobacco mosaic virus infected plant. At that time, he didn't know that the disease, like a tobacco mosaic disease, is mainly due to the tobacco mosaic virus. So what happened? He tried to filter it and see whether after the filtration, whether the whatever the thing comes out of the filter, whether it shows any infection on the tobacco plant by infecting on that one. And then based on his finding, he concluded that bacteria, it produce some toxin. So that toxin comes through the filter. When it infects with the plant, it will causes the disease on the mosaic disease on the tobacco plant. So he suspect that the bacteria would be the causative agent. So by producing the toxin, it causes the disease on the tobacco plant. But later, the Martinus Weijernich, he took the same the filter solution. He took the filter solution, and what happened? And then he proceed further experiment. Based on that, he concluded that it is a new form of the infectious agents. So they are very similar to the liquid type of. It is liquid. He claimed that the infectious agents may be the liquid nature of it. And also he coined, at beginning he coined that as a contagium vivum fluidum. It is in the English, it refers to soluble living germ. And what happened, later he changed that term and then he made it as a virus. So hello, any doubt? Okay. So what happened, so the discovery of the Martinus Weijernich is that, so that the infective agents, he found some infectious agent that is a new infectious agent. When you compare with the Ivanovsky, he claimed that could be bacteria which produces a toxin. But later this Wendell Stanley, so what happened? He worked further on the same virus, and he proved that they are particle nature. The infective virus is basically a particle nature, which is made up of nucleic acid and then protein. So during this process, on early 20th century, the other viruses, the viruses which infect the bacteria, it is called as bacteriophage. They started. That was discovered by this Frederick Tower, and later this Felix D. Hedley. He observed one typical thing is that some pathogens, when it infects the bacteria, it forms plaques. Rather than it thinks that it lies a thing and it forms plaques. So that was discovered by this Felix D. Hedley, and then this Bernal and then Frankenstein on 1941. They crystallized the tobacco mosaic virus, and then they've taken that crystal tobacco mosaic for the extraction and diffraction. But by taking that one with further the Rosalind Franklin, he discovered the full structure of the virus on 1955. So, but later these two guys like Frankel Contract and Robley Williams, they together. What happened? They separated the capsid and then viral RNA separately, and they mixed it and then they showed they can form the infectious virus particle by inoculating on the plant itself. So this is a major achievement, and then afterward, there's many developments have happened in the virology field, and the second of the 20th century can be considered as the golden age of the virus discovery. So during this period, many more viruses have been discovered. Nearly 2,000 recognized species of animal, plant, and then bacterial viruses were discovered during these years. So this is the developments regarding the in the virology field. So so just this I am briefly telling the each things to have a more idea on about the viruses, the more specifically plant viruses. Okay. So regarding coming to the origins, there are the people they consider when this virus would have originated when the life have been produced and life have been created in the earth. So there are a lot of but still now they couldn't identify any fossils for the viruses. So this is a very small thing, and it is not possible. So there are three hypotheses regarding the origin of it. The first one is called as regressive or evolution origin hypothesis. So according to that, previously these viruses may be the free living organism like bacteria and other thing. So what happened later? This virus got into the another cell and made a parasites made of life. And during this process, what happened? It loses most of the things, and it become the real parasite itself. So what happened? Beginning it was a free living cell, and this cell got into the another organisms. And initially it was beginning it was like a symbiotic thing, and later it became parasitic mode of thing. But this hypothesis also couldn't give any experimental evidence also. And the second one is called progressive or cellular origin. From the thing itself, we can understand that. So what happened? These viruses basically they have very small things like a DNA, RNA, and the capsid thing. So what happened? It could have originated from the host DNA or RNA. So they claim that it could have evolved from the bits of DNA or RNA that escaped from the genes of the larger organism itself. So what happened? This particular hypothesis cannot explain how the capsid have evolved. If you see the capsid, it doesn't have any homology with any other organisms itself. So they cannot. So in that case, this hypothesis cannot support the origin of the virus itself. Finally, there is another hypothesis called as self-replicating hypothesis. So according to that, now as you all know, there is a thing called a jumping gene or transposon. So some transposon can like a retrotransposon and so many other transposon are available. So what happened? It could have the virus could have evolved from those such jumping element. It could have evolved from those jumping elements also. So now, especially this hypothesis, it is supported by there is some support coming from the plant virus side. In the sense, like now especially some DNA viruses, they have additional compound that is called as satellite DNA, and the size of the satellite DNA is also very, very small. So what happened? The people, especially viruses, they claim that. So like how this satellite virus is evolving, similarly, the new virus could have evolved from the host also. So there is some support for this hypothesis, but till now there is no clear hypothesis which clearly tells the origin of the virus from the regarding the origin of the virus itself. So okay, now we'll move into we'll discuss briefly about what are the properties of the viruses and what are the things are present in virus itself. So as I told you, it is a acellular organisms like a normal cells. It doesn't have any nucleus, mitochondria, and other things. So what happened? They are obligate intracellular parasites. They can multiply only within the. They can live only within the any living organisms only. and also it has to depend upon the host for the everything, even for the nucleic acid, for replication and then protein synthesis, what needs to be done for the viruses itself. So, and also it doesn't have any complicated division or simple division like how the bacteria divide by the binary fission, and they are also unaffected by the antibacterial antibiotics also. If you see the size, it is ranges. The viruses can be seen under the ultra microscope. So the size it vary between 20 nanometer to 450 nanometer in diameter. So this is a thing which clearly tells that how the size of the viruses between the various cells and other organisms also. So this is RBC cell size, and then E. coli, when you compare with the viruses, they are very, very small. And this rhinovirus is a 13 nanometer, and there is the smallest virus is a parvovirus. It is a 20 nanometer, which is the smallest virus in the among the virus itself. And the other virus is called as Mimi virus. This is the largest one. It has a diameter of 450 nanometer, which can be seen under the light microscope itself. So the size, shape, everything get varied between the viruses. Okay, so viruses they have a different shape also. Not only the size, they have a different shape also. So these are the different shapes of the virus, which is infect bacteria, mammals, and then plants also. So if you most of the cases in the most of the animal infecting viruses, they have more roughly spherical structure. Very rarely they have a different structure also. Very rarely. And for example, this pox virus, it looks exactly looks like a big shape, and then rabivirus, it looks like a bullet shape itself. And the plant viruses also, the shape of the plant virus also highly varied. If you see that this is a tobacco mosaic virus, it has a helical symmetry. It is a rod-shaped thing. And there is another virus is called as Gemini virus. This is the largest plant infecting virus. So here you can see that there are two particles. We call as a twained isometric particle. We call as a geminate. So maybe in the Gemini studio, you could have you can see that one. The two guy they are holding the trumpet. So similarly, these Gemini viruses also they have a twained isometric particle thing. And there is another important virus called as Badna virus. It has a shape called as basiliform. So basically, it has a rod shape, but at the end, it has a short, rounded end rods. Okay, it has a short, round ends in the end of the rod itself. So these are the different shape of the viruses. It infects the plants, animals, and then bacteria also. So you see, this is a shape of the bacteriophage. So which has a very unique, which is a unique shape of the particular virus itself. Okay, now we'll discuss what is a virion. Otherwise, what are the things the virus includes? So what are the structures it possesses? So what is the virion? First of all, so the virion, it is a extracellular complete infectious virus particle is called as virion. So something if you see some infection, so you're extracting and then you're purifying the virus. That virus should be the infectious nature. So when you inoculate to the next organism, that should be capable of causing the disease on the particular host also. So that is called as virion. So in the virion, basically it has a nucleic acid, and which is covered by the capsid. That's the purely protein. So sometimes nucleic acid with the protein together, they call as a nucleocapsid. And additionally, some of the viruses, that is not in the case of the plant viruses. In the animal viruses, additionally, most of the viruses, they have another covering called as envelope. So this is basically a lipid with the protein, with the protein and carbohydrate molecule embedded in the lipid thing. So basically, this envelope, they have evolved. The viruses, it got this envelope after the infection from the animal cell, during the exocytosis process, it takes an envelope protein, it takes a lipid membrane from the infected cell, and that is patched with the protein which is coded from the virus itself. Okay, got it? So all the viruses, they have basic thing called nucleic acid, which is covered by the capsid. But actually, the animal virus, most of the animal viruses, they have an external covering called as envelope, which is basically derived from the host membrane that is patched with the protein which is coded from the virus itself. And some of the viruses, more specifically these herpes simplex viruses, which has another structure called as tegument, which has another segment called as tegument. So what happened, that is present between the capsid and the envelope. So what happened, this tegument, which carries the viral RNA and then viral proteins. So you know what exactly this tegument is function is there. So it is something like a storage thing. It stores some RNA, so that will be helpful, and that will be helpful. So that later it will be translated into protein also. So and what happens sometimes viruses, when it goes from the one organism to other organism in the virion, some of the viruses they take RNA dependent RNA polymerase, that means replicase. So that is needed for the replication of the viruses. And in some viruses it also carries the helicase. So the helicase, it is useful to unbind, or it will melt the secondary structure of the viral RNA. And some of the viruses, like a potivirus, it's also plant viruses. It has a protein which is present at the 5' end of the viral RNA, that is called as PPG. So that also carried by the virus itself. So these are the different different components which is present in the virion. So additionally, the envelope also has another one important thing is called as the projection. The projection is called as peplomere. So I will discuss in an upcoming slide. So before that, we'll discuss one by one. First, I will discuss about the plasmid. As I all know, capsid. So the capsid is a external covering of the virus. So it is basically it is made up of the protein. So the capsid, it is a multimer of the capsomeres. So the capsid is basically the core protein. The core protein is made up of several molecules of the core protein. The individual thing, it is called as capsomeres. If you see the function of the capsid, it will protect the virus from the physical destruction and then enzymatic inactivating nucleus in a biological material. So during the infection, it protects the nucleic acid of the virus from the physical destruction and then nucleus also. And also it will specifically, you will be surprised how in a complex system, how exactly the capsid which recognize the viral nucleic acid, and how the package has been happened. So the capsid, which is responsible for recognizing the signal present on the nucleic acid, so that aids the packing of the virus itself. And also, it also interacts with some other protein present on the vector through which the transmission happens from the one plant or one organism to the other organisms also. And also, in the case of more specifically in the case of the animal viruses, it has some receptors. So it has some epitope. So that will interact with the receptor present on the host cell, through which the virus get into the new cell also. And in some cases, it will regulate the host gene also, and whatever the sequence, whatever the amino acid sequence present on the capsid, they are so antigenic. So it means that when you inject that particular inject the virus into the organisms, they will develop the antibody against the different epitopes present on the capsid of the virus also. And finally, it provides the structural symmetry to the virus particle. So it like whether it will going to be like a spherical shape or cubical shape, or it's going to be a helical shape. So that structure is the symmetry of the thing is basically depend on the capsid itself. And coming to the virus architecture, so there are two type of thing. One is called as helical symmetry. The other one is called as icosahedral. For the helical symmetry, the typical example is a tobacco mosaic virus. This is where in the slide I have given that. So this is how the helical symmetry of the tobacco mosaic virus looks. And there is another type of symmetry. It is called a spherical symmetry. The spherical symmetry, they have a thing called as icosahedral. So the HICO, this thing stands for that. It forms a hollow shaped structure. So what happened? This icosahedral thing, it is made up of 20 triangular thing. So if you count this one is each triangle. So if in the icosahedral structure, if you count that, it has 20 faces of the equilateral triangle thing. So if coming to the symmetry, in the case of the tobacco mosaic virus, it has a helical symmetry. Thing is that this can accommodate any length of the RNA. There is some limitation is there when you compare with the icosahedral base type of structure. This one has a very long. It can accommodate longer RNA when you compare with the icosahedral thing. So it has some specific shape. So what happens? It can accommodate only that much of viral RNA when you compare with the helical symmetry also. So this helical, this is the one. So I will explain more about this tobacco mosaic virus, that helical symmetry, when I discuss about the tobacco mosaic virus in the next session. So what happened? We'll directly go to the icosahedral. So this is the typical structure of the icosahedral. So at the center you have a hollow space, and which that is covered by that thing which has this icosahedral thing. It has a 20 equilateral triangular faces. So if you count this one, each one is called as faces. So if you count that one, the number will give 20 faces. And also, so this is called as faces. So this is called as 20 faces. And if you count this, this one is called as vertices. Okay, this one is called as vertices, and this is called as sides or faces, and this is edges. So on either side of it, this middle point is called as edges. So if all in the case of the icosahedral, you can see the 2-fold, 3-fold, 5-fold axis. So if you take this point, this end and this end, it's called as 2-fold. And in the case of the faces, so this is you're keeping this as a 10 center, and you can have the 3-fold axis also. And coming to the corner, that the vertices, is that it shows a 5-fold symmetry. So you can count that on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can see the 5-fold axis from that center of the vertices also. So why I am explaining is that, so each face is covered by the 3 capsid subunit. It is covered by the 3 subunit, 3 capsid, 3 core protein, 3 subunit, the 3 capsomeres. So what happened? As I told you, it has a 20 triangular face. So if for one particular thing, if you calculate, it has a 3 subunits. So 20 into 3, that can be 60 subunits present in a simple icosahedral structure. So for a virus which has a simple icosahedral structure, to have icosahedral structure, it needs just 60 subunits of it. But when you compare with the helical symmetry of the tobacco mosaic virus, nearly 2,130 subunits of the subunits of capsomeres is needed to encapsulate the 6.4 kb size of the viral RNA. So that much of subunits are needed for the helical symmetry when you compare with the icosahedral. But this is for the simplest one. So here, so this is called a single triangular space. Okay, this is it has a single face. So what happened? So that a simple one, it has only single face. So this is called as triangulation number. So in this one, what happened in the particular triangle, it has a only one triangle. So this is called as T is equal to 1. But in some cases, what happened, the size of the nucleic acid will be more. So to accommodate thing, but to maintain the same icosahedral, what happened that this will be divided into this will be the single triangular phase will be divided into several triangular phases also. So as I told you, this is simple structure that is for the T is equal to 1. So this is the T is equal to 1. So in the T is equal to 1, you can see the 3 capsomeres present in a single thing. So this is called as T is equal to 1. But if you go for the complex one, so what happened in the single phase, you can see the 3 triangular. The single triangular is divided into 3. Is subdivided into 3 triangular phases. So in each phases, it is occupied by the 3 capsid. So that's what, as I told you, in the simple one, it can accommodate 60 subunits. But when the TC, that's for T is equal to 1. But when the TC become T is equal to 3, so you have to multiply 60 into 3. That gives a 180. So this is a formula. So 60 into n, where n is called as triangulation number. So simply that is a number of the triangle present in the particular phase also. So like this, the viruses can have a triangulation number 1, 3, 4, or 7, 9, and 12 also. I know in the most of the bacteriophages they call as T4, T7 like this. So they all basically that also been made based on the number of subunits present on the single phase itself and how many triangulation number it has. Okay, so this is regarding the structure of the viruses. So this is the T is equal to 3. As I told you, there are 3. The single thing divided into 3 different triangle, and each triangle it has a 3. It is made up of 3 subunits. Okay. So this is how the T is equal to 1, T is equal to 3, and T is equal to 4 looks, and then T is equal to 13 also. So you can clearly see that one as the triangulation number increases, size of the thing also increases, and this is to accommodate the larger size of the nucleic acid. Okay, so and there basically that 2 symmetry like a helix, and then icosahedral. But some viruses they have a complex symmetry. That means, for example, bacteriophage head has a helical icosahedral thing, but the tail, it is a tail which has a rod-shaped thing. Okay, so it has a mixture of the both symmetry itself. So next one, what I'm going to discuss about the genome. The genome is basically the sum total of the genetic information carried by the organisms. So what are the nucleic acid which is present in the virus, that is called as genome. So when you compare the number of genes which is present on the virus, there are very few only. Not maximum. It won't cross. Most of the cases, it has a very, for example, tuberculosis virus, it codes only the 4 proteins. But now, like whatever the COVID-19, the SARS-2 virus, anyway, globally we will deal more about this one. So that time we will understand that the size of the COVID is also 24 kb, 24,000 base. It has a 24,000 bases, in which nearly something like more than 15 genes. More than 15 genes are present that codes different protein also. So most of the cases they have a very few genes that so whichever the proteins coded from those genes are necessary to invade the host cell, and then it redirect their activity also. So this is for the infection. It has a minimum protein, so that those proteins they have a multiple function also. So in the case of the nucleic acid, the viruses can have the DNA, either DNA or RNA. The DNA can be single stranded or double stranded, or it can be a circular. In the case of the RNA, it can be a linear, and then it acts like a positive strand. And in some cases, it has a single strand, but it may be the negative strand. And in some cases, some viruses may have a linear, double stranded, segmented RNA also. Okay, so these are different type of thing, different type of nucleic acid, different forms of the nucleic acid present in a virus also. Coming to the last one, it's an envelope. As I told you, it is envelope. It is another extra covering, especially found for the animal viruses, not in the plant viruses. So they are basically derived from the host membrane. So in the envelope, you can find the small projection that is called as peplomere. So what happened? This has so outside it has a peplomere. In some of the viruses, they have something a matrix below the envelope also. So if you see the peplomere, they have they are involved in several functions like some of the for example in influenza viruses there are two type of peplomere presence. One is a neuraminidase and is a heme agglutinin. So what happens? This heme agglutinin, it binds to the RBC and it causes the agglutination of the red blood cells. In the case of the neuraminidase, it is an enzyme. It is an enzyme which is present on the. It is present as a peplomere. It can degrade the neuraminidase present on the host membrane also. And also, it is very important to recognize the host cell also. So that means through the peplomere, the virus can recognize the host cell by binding into the receptor present on the host cell itself. So, and also sometimes it is also antigenic thing, like how the capsid protein behave a property of antigenic. This also has a property of an antigen. Okay, so coming to the virus classification, at beginning, since it has only the envelope, nucleic acid, and the capsid, they took the different thing for the different component for the classification. These are the things. So due to time constraint, I'm not going very deep into that one. So these are the various parameters they are taken for the classification. So based on that, nearly 8 type of classification they derived. So one is basically based on the genetic material, presence of the whether DNA or RNA. At beginning they try to classify, and for the few viruses like the leucoviruses and the ROS viruses, they causes the cancers. So these viruses, they have both DNA as basically they have a DNA as a thing, but additionally they have the RNA components also present in the virion also. So initially they claim that they have a mixture of the DNA RNA viruses, but now they confirm it is purely a DNA virus only. So based on the nucleic acid, the people they classify the virus as a DNA viruses and then RNA viruses, and based on the envelope also, whether if the virus possesses the envelope, then they call this envelope, and without the envelope, then they call this non-envelope virus also. I'm not giving the examples in any way. It won't be useful that much in the sense. So here you have to understand that how they classify the virus based on the different parameters also. And the third way of classification by the capsid structure itself. So so some of them may have only the icosahedral thing without any envelope. They call this a naked icosahedral. So for example, the hepatitis viruses and the polio viruses, they comes under this category. And in the case of the envelope icosahedral, so it has a icosahedral structure of the capsid, and that is covered by the envelope also. And some of the animal viruses, they have an envelope on the helical structure of the virus itself. So more specifically, the influenza virus is a typical example for the envelope helical viruses. And the naked helical, the tobacco mosaic virus is a typical example which doesn't have any envelope, but it has a helical symmetry, helical capsid structure. And the complex, you can take the bacteriophage or herpes virus, smallpox virus. They have a combination of the icosahedral and then helical cage structure also. So this is how, based on the capsid structures, the different viruses they group under the different category also. And then coming back on the basic of structure, whatever the icosahedral they consider as a cubical viruses, and if it has a virus possesses a helical symmetry, they consider as a spiral viruses, and the bacteriophage they consider under the radial symmetry viruses. And for some viruses you cannot confirm the symmetry of the virus, so they keep under the complex viruses. The pox virus comes under the complex virus. And the basic, and also the people they try to classify based on which organism it infects. So when it infects the animal, it is called as animal virus. When it infects a plant, it is called as plant virus. If it infects a bacteria, it is called as bacteriophages. And again, once again, in the animal viruses, depending upon which cell it infects. For example, this COVID-19 is high. It can infect the lung cell at the beginning. So like this, so the animal virus is further grouped into the dermotrophic. It means it infects the skin, and the neurotrophic means it infects the nerve tissues. So like the mode of infection, like the target of the infection also, based on target of the infection also, they subdivided the animal virus. And then based on the route also, especially for the animal viruses, how the virus got into the system also. So if it through the respiratory means it is like a SARS, it goes through the nose. So it is considered through the respiratory node, it goes in. And some of the things all called passes through by the fecal oral route. The hepatitis virus, poliovirus comes under this one, and some through the sexual contact, and some through the blood transfusion, especially HIV. And some of the viruses they are considered as a zoonotic virus. So that means these viruses are basically transmitted by the animals. So like alpha virus, flavivirus, they're all transmitted by some insect. Okay. So these are this is another way the virus also grouped. Okay. And also based on the replication and then site of the replication also. Some of the viruses they replicate in the most of the RNA viruses. They replicate in the cytoplasm, and then the assembly happen in the cytoplasm. But some of the DNA, most of the DNA viruses, they replicate in the nucleus, and also packing happen in the nucleus itself. But very few viruses, very few DNA viruses, they replicate in the nucleus, but the assembly happen in the cytoplasm. Example is pox virus. And similarly, some of the RNA viruses, which has the DNA intermediate, replicate in the DNA, but the packing happen in the cytoplasm also. Example, the Leo virus. Okay, so this is the one which code for the reverse transcriptase also. And finally, the guy, the scientist called as Baltimore, he classified the virus based on the presence of the based on the nucleic acid, and then replications, and then replication also. So this is a classification now it is been accepted, and then basically he grouped the virus into 7 different classes. So in the first classes, the viruses which has a double-stranded DNA, which includes the adenoviruses, herpes viruses, pox viruses. So these are the viruses, they have a double-stranded DNA, double-stranded DNA as a nucleic acid, so they grouped under the group 1. In the group 2, it has a single-stranded DNA virus, example parvovirus, and then the group 3 possesses a double-stranded RNA virus, that is called as reovirus, comes under this one. And then in the group 4, the viruses which has the positive single-strand RNA viruses, it belongs to the group 4. And in the group 5, the negative single-strand RNA viruses are included, which includes the orthomyxoviruses and lambda-viruses. In the group 6, these viruses, they have a positive strand RNA, but with the DNA intermediate in the life cycle. The example is the retroviruses. So what happened? They have RNA nucleic acid, but during the replication, it has to produce the DNA intermediate. And from the DNA, then it will produce the DNA also, from the RNA also. So that those viruses, they group under the 6. And in the group 7, viruses, they possess the double-stranded DNA, but they have during the replication, they have the RNA as an intermediate. So those type of viruses, especially the Hepner DNA viruses, they comes under the group 7. So this way the many classification have been made based on the different component of the viruses, but ultimately the Baltimore classification is accepted one, and the people they are classifying the virus based on the Baltimore classification. Okay, so coming to the nomenclature. So this nomenclature, if you see that one, it starts from the order, and then family, subfamily, genus, species, type, and then strain. Okay, so if you see that one, order, family, subfamily, and the genus, they're all italics. They have to be right in the, you have to utilize the name of the viruses. So order always end with the virales, the family always end with the viridae, and then subfamily always end with the virinae. For example, Gemini virus always end with the Gemini everyday, Poti virus end with the Poti everyday. So for example, here is given is that influenza viruses comes under the order monovirales, orthomyxoviridae, and then the name is influenza virus A. Okay, so the species name generally comes in an English common name. So all these things are regulated by one committee called as International Committee on Taxonomy Virus. So that was established in 1970. So they only the members in the committee, in this particular committee, they finalize the name given for the particular viruses, and then if they need any other reorganization, that means classifications needed, they will do that one, and that they will bring to the public also. So this is the important committee. They are responsible for the nomenclature of the viruses. Okay. Now I don't know whether I will, Ramakrishnan, whether I have any time so I can proceed for the symptoms of the plant.
Dr. Jabbar Singh, you can decide, sir.
I don't know any problem, so I can go further, but okay, no problem.
It's a nice topic, sir.
Okay then. Okay. So I will briefly I will go through the plant viruses. So first I will start about the symptoms of the plant viruses. So if you see the symptoms can be morphologically and be seen. Some of the symptoms present only in the cell, they call as histological changes or microscopic changes. So in the macroscopic symptoms, you can find two type of it. One is the local symptom and the systemic symptoms. In the case of the local symptoms, wherever the virus infect, the symptoms can be seen only that locally only. But in the case of the systemic symptoms, the virus infection happened in the lower lip. The disease, the symptoms, you can see it on the upper lips also. So that means the viruses are traveled through this thing and reaches the upper tip of the cell, tip of the leaf also, and they causes the symptom there. So that is called the systemic symptoms. So if you see that one, there are various type of symptoms. You can see that one. That I will tell you, like a mosaic, mottle, and other thing. So here is in the case of the mottle. So the first I will deal different type of symptom. The first symptoms comes under the color change. Whatever color change happen in the leaf, stem, or root, that comes under this category. So this mottling symptom is an abnormal coloration. So as you all know, the leaf is a green color, but when the virus infects, it can produce the abnormal coloration. It can be a light yellow, a light green, a light yellow color, or even sometimes it produces a dark brown also. So those type of things called as mottling. But in the case of the mosaic, you can see the patches here and there. So that means the virus cannot infect the complete leaf, but it can produce the symptoms in a group of cells. So that gives a mosaic pattern that is called as mosaic. In some of cases, the mosaic may be a simple one. Inside, sometimes it may be it have a thing called with the yellow one, and in some cases, the yellow will become more dark, and it shows the golden mosaic symptom also. So these are the different type of symptoms produced by the different viruses also in different plant also. Okay, the next one is called as chlorosis. The name itself you can understand. The green, due to the inhibition of the chlorophyll pigment, the yellow, that particular the chlorophyll, since the chlorophyll is not there, so the leaf looks yellow color. So that is called as chlorosis. And if the chlorosis happen only in the vein, then it is called as vein clearing. And sometimes the vein will be the perfect, but the tissues around the vein become the yellowish color. Then that is called as vein banding also. So these are the different name of the different name given based on the symptoms appear on the plant also. In some cases, what happens, you can see the ring spot on fruits. This is highly prevalent in the case of the papaya ring spot virus, in the papaya plant due to the papaya ring spot virus. So the yellow ring, it can be a yellow ring, or it can be the necrotic rings also. The brown color is basically due to the necrotic ring. And in some cases, what happens, the necrosis, you can see that one. So this basically is due to when the virus infects the plant, in order to protect the further infection, the infection moving into the other cells, what happens, the infected cells, they produce one type of response called as hypersensitive response. that means it will make the particular cell to suicide. So that means it will, the particular cells will be undergo the death, by which the virus cannot spread to the neighboring cells also. So that those type of thing is called as necrosis. Necrosis. You can see it as a spot, or you can see it as it's an enlarged thing also. The whole leaf can also be, depending upon the how much inoculation, how much infection, how happen, the necrosis can be. It can be like a spot, or it can spread as a larger area also. And coming to the next type of changes is called as morphological changes. So under this, there are different type of things that there. The first one is a rolling. So the rolling here, what happens towards the axis, the leaf gets folded. So that is called as rolling. But in the case of the curling, and the rolling happen irregularly. So it doesn't comes towards the mid axis. It can happen irregularly, and it doesn't form the tube-like structure what observed in the case of the rolling type of symptom also. And the next one is called as distortion. That means a deviation from the normal leaf shape. So it can be the crinkle. It can have the crinkling shape. That means this is how it looks. So the leaves look edged or wrinkled. So you can the wrinkle happen in the edge of the leaf also. In the case of the puckering, what happens? The blisters, what we see for the chicken pox or for chicken pox, how these blisters form on the human body. Similarly, that type of symptoms are observed in the plant also. That is called as puckering, and this distortion can even happen in the fruits also. Okay, they can happen in the fruits also. And there is one more distortion happen, that is called as venation. So what happened here? There is a abnormal growth of the vascular tissues in the leaves and then stems found. So that is called as venation. Okay. So there is a third type of abnormality is called as there are different type of abnormalities also found. For example, like Agrobacterium, how it produces a crown gall. There are some viruses which can cause the crown gall also, and then in some cases what happens, the leaf become very restricted. It looks like a long stinging appearance. What happens? The leaves become like a stem. So what happens? The leaves breadth is be reduced also. So those type of things called as shoestring. And in the case of the stem pitting, what happens? This is the normal one. This is a stem pitting diseased one. So what happened? The ropey appearance observed due to the phloem tissues with the virus grows irregularly, producing the pit. So it will always produce the pit in this region. So this type of symptom is called as stem pitting. And due to some virus infection, the leaf also form the roseate leaf. So that means the leaves form a radial cluster on the stem itself. So these are the different type of abnormalities that produced due to the virus also. And in some cases, what happened? Some viruses causes the bunching or stunted and bunchy growth. So I don't know whether you hear a bunch it of banana. So when they infect the banana plant, all the leaves become bunchy one, and the leaves become stunted, grows a stunted thing. And in sometimes what happens, it also causes the wilting also. That means the viruses block the present in the phloem, and they block the movement of the food particles and the waters, and that makes the wilting of the leaves and other thing also. So these are the different symptoms you can see morphologically. But within the cell, there are a lot of changes can also happen. Sometimes it causes the necrosis and hyperplasia and then hyperplasia. Hyperplasia means that it reduces the cell division of the growth of the particular cell, and in some cases it will causes the abnormal or high cell divisions also happen. But within the cell, nucleus become granular, chromatids may be reduced, chloroplasts show disintegration, mitochondria show the aggregation also, and also the cell wall become thickened, and then gas deposition happen in the cell wall also. But in some viruses, they show the unique structure called as inclusion point. It forms the inclusion bodies, especially in the case of the potivirus, it forms a pinwheel inclusion. In the case of the Gemini viruses, it forms the inclusion in the nucleus itself. So this inclusion, the pinwheel inclusions happen in the cytoplasm. The other, in the case of Gemini virus, the inclusions due to viral proteins are present in the nucleus itself. So these are the different internal symptoms also produced. So Coming to the replication, there are, as this you have studied in the even school days itself, the bacteriophage replication, it has a lytic and then lysogenic. But in the case of the animal and the plant viruses, it has a different thing. It includes attachment, penetration, uncoating, biosynthesis, assembly, and then release. So nearly the six steps are involved. But in the case of the plant viruses, there is no attachment at all. Directly, the virus needs to get into the cell. So generally, it has only the five steps in a life cycle of the plant viruses. Okay, if you see that one, the viruses regarding coming to the transmission, it has a both type of transmission. It can transmit horizontally and then vertically. So urgent transmission happen by the help of the vectors and due to the human interference and whatever other whatever the equipments you are using for the cutting or something. Through that also the horizontal transmission can happen. If you're coming to the vector, what I mean is that some through the biological material, so that the insect, when it insect or nematode or fungus, when it infect the plant, healthy infected plant, it takes a virus, and then during the feeding the another healthy plant, during that time it will inject the virus also. So through the vectors like the insect, nematode, fungus also the virus can be transmitted. Coming to the vertical transmission, what it means that through the cutting also, whatever the asexual propagation, which includes cutting, and also through the sexual reproduction through the seeds also. So what happens? It reaches the embryo, and after the fertilization, it is present in the seeds, and during the plant germinate, the virus also multiply in the plant itself. So these are the different way of transmission happen in the case of the plant virus also. So this is what in the mechanical transmission. When in the horizontal transmission, the mechanical transmission, first process in the sense when there is a rubbing of the infected with the healthy leaf during some damage happen in the healthy plant. So whatever the virus present in the infected plant can go into the normal plant also. So as I told you, through the grafting or budding, during that process also it can go, and through the seeds also it can go. When it present externally in the seeds, so during the germination of the seeds, it can also infect the new emerging plant also, and also sometimes it also transmitted by the pollen also. So, and also there is another important transmission happening called as daughter. So what happened during this the parasitic plants? What happened? They try to they will have a contact between the two different plants. So through the connection called as daughter. So what happened? Virus from the infected plant can pass through the healthy plant, and the daughter goes from the infected to the healthy plant also. So the virus transmission can also happen through the daughter also. Okay, so the vectors, as I told you, that there are a group of insect which transmit the viruses. So they belong to the aphids, leaf hoppers, plant hoppers, whiteflies, beetles, mealybugs, thrips, and mites. So through these vectors, through the insect, when they feed the plant, they take the virus, and when during the second infection of the healthy plant, they will put the virus into this one. Thanks. So it can be a non-persistent, semi-persistent, persistent. From the word itself, we can easily understand that in the case of the non-persistent, it accumulates the virus in a short time and then transfer to the new plant in a short time. In the case of the semi-persistent, it will spend a lot of time to suck the virus, but it will take only a few minutes to transfer into the new plant. But in the case of the persistent, it stays for a longer time for the accumulating the virus, and for the transmission, it also takes a lot of time also. So this is how the viruses are transmitted in a different way through the insect. And there are these three genera of the nematodes like Longidorus, Paralongidorus, Zipinia. They found that these three nematodes, they transmit the viruses, most specifically Nipoviruses and the Tabra viruses are transmitted by the nematodes. And then fungus also transmit. One of this generally it happens to the oospore. So what happens when this oospore, when it germinates, it will produce a juice spores. So what happened? So when while during the infection to the plant, so what happened? Whatever the virus accumulated the oospore, that will germinate along with that will go along with the zoospore germination, and during the penetration, the virus also will be penetrated with the new plants also. So the virus can be transmitted in a different way also. And coming to how we are going to diagnose this. So there are several methods for the animal viruses, but in the case of the plant viruses, by having the few systems, we can easily diagnose it. The first one is called as pathogenicity. There are some indicated plants are available, like Nicotiana, Chenopodium. So what the people do that, whenever they found the new viruses or already reported viruses, they inoculate and see what the symptoms are produced. Based on the symptoms, they will identify the particular viruses. It's not a confirmed thing, but preliminary identification they do by inoculating on the plants. In other cases, they can do by the transmission. So what they do, whether they will check whether these particular viruses are transmitted by the feeding to the particular vector, and see whether that can transmit the virus from one plant to the another plant. So based on the transmissibility, also we can confirm the particular virus. And by seeing the virus particle under the electron microscope, also we can diagnose. In other way, I told you there are some specific structures are produced by the virus, like inclusion bodies. So those type of things also can be noticed down under the electron microscopy. Based on that, also we can confirm the particular virus also. And also the other mode of thing is that based on the antibody raised against the core protein of the virus. So by doing the ELISA, by using the antibody raised against the virus can be, or the particular virus can be diagnosed. And the other way is by doing the PCR. So if you have specific parameter for the particular viruses, we can screen by doing the PCR also. So coming to the last one, so you found the virus, how the virus can be controlled. So this is, as I told you, the most of the viruses are transmitted by vectors. So the virus you cannot kill directly, like how generally happen for the animal viruses. Even animal viruses also not killed directly. By increasing immunity only, we can do that one. So what happened in the case of the animal viruses, by killing the vector that is responsible for the transmission, by which we can control the virus transmission also. So that is one way, that is called as biological pest control, or by using the pesticide. Then the second way, by using having the natural resistant variety itself. So some of the in same plant, some of the varieties may have a resistant genes, so that will be useful to resist that will resist the particular virus. So what happens, we can select that things, and then by crossing with the susceptible varieties, we can develop the natural resistance also. In other ways, you can do the transgenic resistance by transferring some genes, so that will show the resistance against the virus also. I will explain that in the next slide. Or other ways, you have to use the virus-free planting material also. So whatever the tissue culture based plant, they are virus-free one only. So by using in a protective way, by using the virus-free planting material, by which we can avoid the virus infection also. And this is the new concept that is called exclusion. That means we can prevent by making the proper establishment, we can avoid the virus getting into that area also. So here so you have to select the new area in which you never find any viruses. So you take the virus-free planting material and plant that, by which you can protect from the virus infection also. And this is the final one. So in the case of I'm introducing a new term called as pathogen derived resistant, that is called as PDR. This is like by using this is like very similar to making the resistance by using the pathogen, that means virus gene itself. So this is basically operated by two ways. One by maybe the protein-based protection. The other one is a nucleic acid-based protection. In the case of the protein-based protection, you have to express the code protein or movement protein of the virus in a modified one. That means you have make some truncation or you make some mutation such that will disturb the normal function of the wild viral protein when the virus infects. So in the one example, one experiment like this is the papaya ring spot. This is the transgenic plant which produces the core protein of the papaya ring spot virus. It shows the resistance against the papaya ring spot virus, but the other field which doesn't have any core protein of the papaya ring spot virus. So when the virus infects, it will clear all the papaya plant. When you compare with the papaya plant, which has the transgenic of the papaya core protein of the papaya ring spot virus itself. So this is called as core protein mediated resistant. And coming to the nucleic acid protection, there is a process called as silencing. So that is the mechanisms happen. In this case, what happened? You make the expression of the that means complementary RNA that will target the viral RNA or any viral transcript of the DNA viruses. So what happened? That will bind into the viral RNA or viral transcript, by which it will interact, and then it will execute a process called the silencing. So this basically RNA mediated resistance mechanism, by which also by making the transgenic with that particular construct, we can develop the resistance against the virus also. So this is how we can resist the virus also. So I will stop here. If you have any doubt, you can ask me.
Dear participants, if you have any doubt or clarifications to be made with the resource person, you can unmute your mic and ask.
I went a bit fast to give the information, a lot of information with a limited time. So that's why if you have any doubt, you can ask me. If you don't understand any concept or if I made anything wrong, you can clarify. I'm very happy to answer your question.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, how to develop the virus resistance plant? The
Okay,
technique.
so through this pathogen resistance you're asking.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
See, that's what I told you. The protection is basically two-way process. It should be either protein-based or a nucleic acid-based. Generally, for the core protein, when you're using the core protein or movement protein, it is basically a protein.
Means by this two technique only we can make.
No, by doing it transgenic, by doing that, I'm talking about the pathogen-derived resistance.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So what happens when you make the truncated core protein or any mutation that is responsible? Say, for example, there are some. I told you this core protein that needs to recognize the viral RNA and then go for the encapsulation. So what you can do, you can make some truncation in those amino acids. And then you make the transgenic. So the transgenic plants will be producing the mutated core protein. So what happens? That will avoid the encapsulation of the viral RNA, by which you can inhibit the virus resistance, by which you can induce the virus resistance. And similarly for the movement protein, that will be the competitive inhibition. So that will disturb the normal function of the movement protein, by which you can do that one. And then the case of the RNA, in the case of the RNA mediator, generally that they will use the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase gene, or otherwise the replicase gene, what virus possesses. So what you have to do, you have to make the antisense construct. So you should have the antisense. You can understand that. So that you make the producers the RNA. That will be complemented to here is the RDR gene. So what happens that they will go and bind with that. So when the double-stranded RNA forms, the system will produce one mechanism called as silencing. This is basically RNA-based thing. So that will degrade the viral RNA itself. Okay, by which you can protect the plant from the virus infection. Any other doubt? Any other doubts? Okay. Thank you.
Jabba. To supplement your point, Ranjit Kumar Panda, there is the protein based is a broad spectrum.
Okay, thank you.
Nucleic acid based it's a short. Means selectively it will inhibit a particular virus. Whereas if you have core protein, so it's a broad spectrum. Those virus which is having more homology, that will be inhibited by code protein or any protein mediated resistance.
So that's what the code protein, thanks Gopal. So whatever even the code protein, if we have some similar viruses, the viruses which comes under the same family, when they infect, sometimes this core protein thing, they have a protection against all the viruses comes under the same family also. But in the case of the nucleic based protection, it is species specific. So it is basically nucleic acid based one. So it can make the protection only for that particular species, not the complete species comes under the particular family also.
Sir, another one doubt.
Okay.
Sir, the plants that will be produced by the resistance, will it be dominant over the virus plant or not? Dominant?
Dominant, what do you mean? Like in the case, like dominant, what I understood that one. So like a viruses produces wild protein.
Wild protein.
Okay. Now you made a transgenic. That with the transgenic, you have made under the particular gene insert the particular gene cloned under the highly expressible promoter. Or this generally we use the cauliflower mosaic promoter. That is also basically a virus promoter only. So what happens? That will be synthesizing the particular thing constitutively. That means whatever the concentration which is produced in the transgenic plant, that is more than sufficient to nullify the activity of the wild protein itself.
Wild protein.
Okay, so it is if you see the concentration, it is like it is more in the case of the transgenic plant than the incoming virus. This also basically depend upon the virus inoculum also. Most of the time, it will be producing more protein that will nullify or that will neutralize the wild protein comes from the virus itself.
Dr. Jabbar?
Hello.
Some of the participants have posted
Okay. I'll go there. Sorry, this is how I used to.
Actually, there is no question.
Oh, no question. Then great.
No, many of them are asking that whether the PDF of this presentation can be shared to them.
I don't know. I don't have any problem. I'll be very happy to share this also. Already I sent to you. Maybe you can send to others also.
Okay.
By reading that, if they get some information, I'll be very happy also.
Okay,
No
thank you, sir.
Okay,
The
okay.
participants, it will be sent to your registered email ID.
Okay.
Any other question from the audience? Participants?
Hello. Pradeep Kumar, you can ask. Hello.
Hello. It's there is no question, sir. With brief time, you have shared a lot of information, and that was fruitful.
Okay.
That was fruitful,
Okay.
and congratulations, and to you and my colleague Dr. Ramakrishnan.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Pradeep, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Okay. So shall we have a break for 10 minutes, Ramakrishnan?
Yes, sir. Please,
Okay.
sir.
Ramakrishnan, you can call me Jabbar Singh, no problem. You don't have to tell sir, okay?
No problem.
And I don't mind, okay?
Jabbar, I think there was one person who was trying to ask question.
What question?
No. But we'll leave it. Yeah.
Oh, what?
Before Pradeep Kumar, somebody was some lady's voice, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
If
Anyone
anybody is having any doubt, please ask.
Please ask, no? Hello?
Hello.
Vijay.
Yeah, I am.
Hello, Vijay.
Yes, I have two questions. Before that, I want to congratulate you. It was a nice presentation. So it is very much interesting for the students, especially for the students, to know about the basics about the viruses. Okay, coming to the question.
Okay.
I'm wondering about the bacteriophages. Bacteriophages, it has the icosahedral head and the helical tail, as you said. I mean, the proteins are arranged like that. The homology of protein, is it same or will it be different?
No, the protein, the symmetry will be same. In the sense, like if you're taking the head, which has a icosahedral structure, the symmetry will be same. And then the subunit, what do you want, like nearly something like a 60 subunits needed for the T is equal to 1. So that will be same, but amino acids will be varied. Amino acid even within the bacteriophage also, the also, depending upon the bacteria infect, the amino acid sequence will be varied. Why I'm asking that? That is the one we needed to recognize the particular bacteria. No? So surely the amino acid will be varied, but the symmetry will be same. Symmetry will be same only.
Yeah. One more thing. Within the amino acid, do we have any D form of amino acids, or all are like L forms of amino acids?
I think it's a D form only. It's a D form only, I think. But I'm not sure. I have to check that one. Anyway, at least you raised this question. I have to go back and I read this one. Global, if you know any idea, if you have any idea,
Not,
I don't have any confirm.
I'm not having any idea, but
Idea
probably
about it.
D form.
Probably it should be D form. It should be D form only.
Okay. Okay. Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
for,
And,
thanks for making this question also. Even we never ever thought about that one. It should be D form only. It should be D form only.
Most of some L form will be very rarely it will be occurring. It should be a D form, but anyway we have to check it before making any concrete statement.
yeah, and one more thing, sir. Most of the plant viruses are having only the RNA as nucleic acid.
Yes.
Is that any specific reason or it's a natural phenomenon?
Till now, we don't have any proper. I cannot give any proper answer for that one. This was, but anyway, but if Gemini viruses previously, Potiviruses has the RNA genome. Previously, it was considered as leading like a largest plant infecting virus. But very recently, Gemini virus take over it. That means what happens that the recombination, there are several factors which makes the evolution of the new virus itself. Thing is that especially viruses, they have the replication function. That means that it uses the host DNA polymerase for its replication. So there is no chance of having the mutation. That means there is no DNA which have evolved which will evolve have a new mutation. But in the case of the RNA viruses, all the RNA viruses, they use their own RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. The RNA-dependent RNA polymerase doesn't have any proofreading activity when you compare with the DNA viruses. So in that case, what happened? That's why the new viruses, RNA viruses, are evolving, that's why the many number of RNA viruses are coming up. But now we compare with the Gemini virus, still we don't know how exactly why now the Gemini virus number is increasing. In the sense, new viruses are evolving. New viruses are evolving from the different plants. We don't know. I know maybe Gopal, if you can answer for this question also.
No, I don't know exact answer. For me, when it comes to plant, only DNA viruses is the largest virus, but probably in animal infecting viruses, you may see some RNA viruses. But for when it comes to DNA virus, it's having one advantage. Remember, no need to encode any DNA polymerase or RNA polymerase. It is exploiting fully from the host system. Probably that's why in a plant system there are so many DNA infecting viruses which is having DNA as a genetic material. Whereas when it comes to RNA viruses, remember it has to encode RDRP, like reverse transcriptase or other protein. But when it comes to Gemini virus, maximum it is encoding only 5 protein. The 5 protein is sufficient to induce the symptoms when it comes to plant. Whereas that kind of phenomenon may not be seen for animal viruses. So this is but anyway, it's all speculative reason. We don't know the real exact reason for that.
Yeah, thank you.
If you calculate the rate of the new virus thing, like RNA viruses, they have more chance. As I one of the reason is RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. It doesn't have the proofreading activity. So due to that, there is a mutation can happen while replicating the RNA, and that can make the new viral RNA itself. So there is a more chance of having the thing on the RNA viruses. But still, we don't know how this DNA, especially Gemini viruses, is evolving very fast.
Yeah, that may be the reason also. When it comes to RNA, it's like coronavirus, it's having the current coronavirus having maximum 96% similarity with some bat. There's in the Yunnan, China, there's a Yunnan province. So there, that bat is having 96 similarity with coronavirus. Some slight mutation which caused to infect human also. Because of mutation, probably now RNA virus keep on evaluating in animal systems. So that also one of the reason.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other clarification? Any other doubt? Any other questions? Okay.
Okay. If there are no more questions,
okay.
we can go for a break, sir.
Okay. Ramshay, shall we have it for 10 minutes or how long? Like,
Okay.
how long? 10 minutes? I don't have any problem. I can come after 5 minutes also. I have to finish early and then go there, sir.
Okay, we can have 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, then. Fine.
So that
Okay.
we have been
Thank you.
seeing the screen for a long time now.
That's why, like, the eyes would have strained. Eyes would have strained.
Yeah.
Okay, then. Thank you.
That's fine.
Okay.
Dear participants, we will meet again after 10 minutes.